Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsonelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am super excited to have you here with us today, and I have an awesome guest. Her name is Catherine. Best name ever. So, Catherine, thank you so much for joining me for the podcast today.
Thank you for having me, Cat and Cat.
I love it. All right, Catherine. So then let's dive right in then. Please tell the audience, who you are, what it is that you do, and what got you into your space.
Wow, sometimes I think we all stop and think, who are we? What are we doing? Um, but I'm an international speaker. I've spoken on the 7 continents of the world, having just come back from speaking in Antarctica this year, which was pretty exciting for womankind. And I have authored a couple of books. I didn't want to author a book, but I was lucky enough to have Hachette approach me, who was the second largest publisher in the world. They'd heard me speak on the Million Dollar Handshake. And then next minute, they're paying me to write a book. So that was kind of very cool. That's a book. And before it was released in 2018, the international rights were bought by Orion Books, who produced Harry Potter. So that was a bit exciting. And then they made it Business Book of the Year in UK. And now it's been translated in its different languages, different covers, Vietnamese, Taiwanese, all those wonderful countries. So it's making its way around the world. And of course, would love to get to America as well. That would be absolutely amazing. What else do I do? I'm a mum. I have 4 horses, 4 goats, 3 sheep, 8 chickens, 3 kids, and wife to only one husband. Definitely enough. And I also help coach and mentor. We run writers' retreats. My second book, The Conscious Leader, we've just used in so many countries. 1,000 have just been sent out to one of the banks. So I just love helping people grow. I grew my business from scratch in the global financial crisis, sold over $1 million in my services in the first year. We went vertical. We ended up with 18 staff and 36 trainers around Australia, and then we went international 4 years in. And then I actually sort of sold that part of it because I've discovered how much I love to share a message with a massive audience. I didn't need I always thought 20 people were enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized how we can actually get our message out and still make a difference and sow seeds for those changes, because I work with body language, mindset, and behaviors for leadership, sales, and service. So that grew quickly. And I also realized how much we still needed our soft skill training. So we've bought all those products to our clients. So a lot of the time we will speak at an event, and then we will also leave them with lots of resources so the team can keep digging in and
Mhm.
keep working on it. Or sometimes they'll bring us back to do training quarterly, those sorts of things. So that's me, maybe in a bit of a nutshell.
Just a little nutshell. No, I love it though, and I love that you never thought of being an author, until somebody brought it to the forefront for you. And you've got to give the audience a little bit of an insight of what is the $1 million handshake.
Okay, it's the handshake that you create more win-wins with. So a lot of people are either told, you come in with that firm handshake and it's always firm no matter what sort of thing,
Yep.
which can be quite crushing to someone else. And then they think that you might be a bit arrogant, perhaps a bit of a bully. And if you get that softer handshake, you think, oh, that person's really weak. But in actual fact, maybe their behavior style is they like to look after you. They don't want to hurt you by squeezing your hand. And some people like to pat the other person's hand and all these things that we do, thinking we're creating good intent. But then when I do it back to them, what they've given me, they go, oh, that's not really very nice. And it wasn't their intent. Their intent was to look after the other person, but you're meeting me for the first time. How do I know I need you to look after me? So it really is about creating that win-win in that first nanosecond. You can alter your handshake to meet that person, and that's sort of where it all began. And so we had a keynote that we were delivering around the world, and it was body language, mindset, behaviors to create this. Not just the book isn't just about a handshake. That's what I was so worried about. If you call the $1 million handshake, I'm like, are you sure you want to call it that? Because it was one of my keynotes to be able to connect and communicate at a better level, right, for business and life. And
Hmm.
um, and they said, no, no, we love the title. We want to make it that title. And of course, 2020 came. And what did every
Mm.
leader around the world say? Don't shake, don't shake hands. Even while they're still shaking hands, I'm like, oh no, that's not a thing. But human beings are human beings, and everyone's still shaking hands. Thank goodness.
I mean, good, it's a good thing. So I kind of see it more of a way to teach others kind of who you are in a sense when you first meet them, because they say that within, what is it, I think it's 7 seconds, the brain either makes you friend or foe. And I feel like the way that you shake someone's hand, your body language, the way you approach someone, the tone of voice, like all of those pieces really play a part into how the brain intakes who you are and how it wants to handle you moving forward into the conversation. So I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's kind of the sense that you're bringing into this book as well, is it's almost a way to be able to understand how people are profiling you, how they're judging you, what your first impact is when you meet them on several different levels.
Yes, because we do make that first impression in just 7 seconds. And if it's a good one, it can lead to a job, an opportunity, or as we all know here, even a date. So, so I made my first impression today. Was it a good one? But if not, it can take up to 12 more positive experiences to take away that first negative impression. Now, we don't
Hmm.
always get that chance. And, we connect quite easily with 25% of people in the world. But what are we going to do with that other 75%? And why tell them straight away in that first instance exactly that perhaps you might be opposite them? And then they don't really want to spend that time getting to know you either. So, and it's not about not being authentic, but it's about it's for me, it's always about allowing some time for for you to get to know them and for them to get to know you as well. So it's
Mm-hmm.
taking away all those things that we might do that could be distracting and could put somebody else off, right? So just to give you a chance with that first impression, but it's not all about that. Like I said, the next chapter is around our body language because that plays a massive part in the way that we
Yeah.
breathe, the way that we connect as well. And then we go into mindset because people are always, like you used the word before, judging and judging others. But if you're doing that, then just remember they'll be doing that too. And so the more that we learn how to meet and greet and be open and allow things to unfold, not with their own agendas. You see some people shaking hands, looking at the other person, oh, that's the person I really want to meet. They have no idea who this person knows. And this person right in front of you right now might be the best contact or connection you could make for the whole day, but we don't give it a chance sometimes. And so I really love people to treat everyone they meet like their $1 million customer or their
Mhm.
$1 million friends, and it makes massive difference, huge. I was just playing sometimes, and guys, they love to put their hand in their pocket, but we go, we don't know what's in there. And some people put a hand behind the back, or what's behind your back? And what do I do with my arm? It's like, well, it's always been attached to you. And all of a sudden, when I take people through speaker training and these things, it's always like arms and their hands all of a sudden become this nuisance and not knowing what to do with them. So it's quite interesting. And we have a lot of fun because body language is fun. And when you go to countries that don't speak your same language, when you are aware and you are conscious, you can match and meet and have conversations, even if you don't have the language, just through your body language. So it's quite incredible.
And that makes a lot of sense too, because if you think about it, your body language and the way that you present yourself is also the energy exchange as well. And I think that sometimes that's where people unconsciously begin to meet and understand someone or judge them is based off of that energy, right? So if you walk into the room and immediately you just kind of feel like, oh, that person seems kind of like off-ish, that in itself can like melt the whole conversation from even starting because of the way that you present yourself. And I believe that the physiology of your body does make a difference, like you were talking about body language as well, of how somebody will perceive you before you even get to them.
Yes, and I'm really not saying don't ignore your gut feeling on people because it will be right. So sometimes if you do have that feeling or you see someone, you don't have to meet everyone. You don't have to create that if you don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
However, in business, it is great to have that, meet and greet down pat so you feel confident. Like you can feel really confident. A lot of men today are going, they don't even really know what to do with women because a lot of them just go and hug because they don't really know how to shake hands. They go, oh, I just like hugging. And, in that instant of meeting someone for the first time, you're rubbing your body up down against someone else. So I've always found that a bit weird, right? Whereas a handshake gives you that space, you can have that connection. You can have hand gel in your pocket just to spray. Don't
Mm-hmm.
use hands to eat food with. You use your other hands until you get to wash or spray that hand. So providing you don't touch the face, which was my favorite thing coming out of COVID. They were saying to everyone, the leaders, do not touch your face while they keep touching their face, because we send mixed messages when we touch our nose, cover our mouth, touch our eyes,
Mm.
play with ourselves. Um, and it takes away from your message. So one of the things they said was, don't touch your face. And I always say, don't touch men. No, we love men, but mouth, eyes, and nose. So, if you're not putting germs into these areas, you're less likely to get sick. And I travel the world, honestly. In 2019, I had over 80 flights, shook hands with thousands of people around the world, and never got the flu. And touch wood, still haven't had COVID. And I have traveled, oh my gosh, this year I've probably been on maybe 40 planes and into, I think, around 10 countries
Wow.
already this year. So, and I haven't fell sick once again, touch wood, but I do believe that we've just got to be a little bit more conscious. I see people touching their mouths and teeth, and I'm just think, get your fingers out of your mouth. So, so don't touch your face. And it's great because it keeps you open. And, when we smile, it is the best we will ever look. So if you don't like your smile and you don't like your teeth and all these different things, just remember it's still the best you'll ever look. And so we can, attract people to us or push people away, just
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to do. And one of my quotes in the book, because the third chapter is all around behaviors, is what you believe doesn't make you a better person, but the way you behave does. And what that
Mm.
means is what we think isn't always right. We can make up 100 stories for someone else, but none of them may be true. in actual fact, what we think isn't always right. We make up these stories for ourselves. And so for me, it's not about judging that person, but for me, it's about how am I making that person feel? What will they think of me when I walk away? Am I someone that they want to meet again or do business with or become friends? Um, so if we start to swap it to ourselves, what is our body language doing? Because that's our domino effect. It's not
Mm-hmm.
theirs, it's so I like people to start to understand their domino effect. And as speakers, I get a lot of speakers come to me as well. So I always get them to video. So if you are speaking or you're pitching or presenting, video yourself and then watch it without sound. See what your body is doing. See if there's any
Oh.
other nervous things that you're doing. And a lot of people like to hold their hand when they first come out and when they're speaking, because the first thing we learned to do as children, you know, little toddlers, was to hold hands for safety. And so that's why a lot of people cross themselves, cross arms, those sorts of things. So it's very, very interesting. So you always watch it without sound and then listen to it without watching it and then do both. And you will see different areas. Quite often say if you see yourself touching yourself on different words, have a look at what is that sentence about? What are you unsure of? Or what don't you like about it? I see people go, you're going to love this product. It's great. And if you don't, you can return it really easily. And I sit there, no, I don't think so.
I really haven't thought about that too, of like how many people I have met with that have their hands in some weird way, or running their fingers through their hair, or like itching your nose. Like, I've never thought about that as sending signals, you know um but it makes sense. I just like, they say, if you're speaking to someone and you're trying to tell them something, like give them feedback, but you're constantly like looking in a different direction, then that can be avoidance, or maybe you're not telling the full truth to what you're stating. So it makes a lot of sense. I've just never thought about hands around the face. Like, now I'm gonna have to go back and watch my video because now I'm really interested. I'm like, do I touch my face then when I'm speaking in other things?
And even letting not to judge others, but just to watch yourself if you're doing it, because when it's certain words and we're listening and watching someone, it does make us all of a sudden think something different.
Hmm.
So just be conscious, in your conversations, be present. And I think it really does make a difference.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Definitely, being very present in that. I have really worked on training myself to be aware of what I am seeing, even if it is kind of a free flow, just so that I'm still in that moment and not kind of like taken away. And then I end up on some tangent that's like over here in left field. Because I've done that before. But you're so right. Like, it is being very aware, but I've never heard of watching your video when you do speak, but without the words, which is really, really interesting, so that you can actually really pay attention without trying to make the connection in your brain of why you moved your hand in a certain way or put it near your face during this word. So that's really interesting to help kind of break up the way that the brain is processing it, so that you can have the capability to go back through and be like, oh, okay, that's what's going on. So what would you say then is some of the biggest mistakes that people make with their body language besides touching their face? Because I know body language is definitely a huge propeller when it comes to, especially if you're a speaker, that's a huge piece of what people are paying attention to outside of your words. And if I'm not mistaken, body language is picked up more than the words that are actually being saying. I can't remember. I know there's a whole breakdown in it with,
Yes, yes.
tone and the different pieces. So
I got the breakdown for you. Now, the first thing I'd say for women is don't do what I've done today. So it's 4 a.m. here in Australia. I've just come back from UK. So I think most of you know it's like a 32-hour trip with time zones. And so having our hair out of the face or pinning it is really good. But like I said, it's 4 a.m. here. I just woke up and I haven't really done my hair, so I should have done that. So I've got this wonderful strand that wants to come down. So pin your hair back so you're not having to play with it all the time to get it in the right places. Some people have it across their eyes as well,
Hmm.
one side, and so it does detract from the conversation. So having it back and being open is important. So some of the common things we see, first of all, I'll just have a little bit of a look on Zoom, is people will look down or look at themselves while they're speaking, and they forget that when I'm over here looking at myself, or I could look at you over here, the audience doesn't feel that you're really speaking to them. So I get a lot of my clients just to put a little smiley face up near the camera because where do you feel I'm talking to now? Who do you feel I'm talking to?
Now I feel like you're really talking to the audience. Like you're looking straight ahead. You've kind of got your chin up a little bit. And I have seen that with past guests of like where their camera is positioned and where
Yeah,
their
yeah.
eyes go.
And to you now, it looks like I'm talking to you. I'm looking straight at you, and that's because I'm looking at the camera. But it's okay to take your eyes away. And in the past, this had happened, but what we do know is that we're likely to have at least 5 times. And so you can take your eyes off as you are talking still on this screen and bring people in.
Hmm.
You don't have to stare them down, obviously. It's a bit scary. You can move in when you're excited. You can move back and, create space, use the reactions. A lot of the time, if I was training and speaking, you would also, see from waist up when I stand up because I have like a training room inside
Hmm.
as well, so you can see the hands. But we've got to be careful that they're not just little muff things that pop up and down every now on the screen. So that's a couple of little tips. And like you said, um, some people will stand over and look down into the screen. I see a lot of
Hmm.
men, quite powerful men, they look down. It does look like they're looking down at you. But we all know, even for our vocal cords, it's better to be a little up. Yeah. And
Hmm.
winners look up. So we're going to stay a little bit more energized than when we're looking down. Okay, so that's a couple of things there. Now, of course, on stage, what happens, I see a lot of the times that people will stand on one leg. So
Mm.
they kind of be strong on one leg and the other leg will be a little bit you know, bent or relaxed. But what happens is when we do that, very soon we'll go to the other leg and then we'll go back to the other leg and then we go back and then we got a little dance going on, and so it's really important to put weight in both your legs, that even weight, so
Hmm.
that will hold you still. Some people stand with their legs really wide to feel like they're grounded and they've got a power pose, but when our legs are wider than hip width apart, it actually catches your spine. So instead of being able to move really easily around from the waist, not swinging from the hips. The movement should be from the waist as we're speaking. When your legs are too wide, it actually stops that spine from moving from the hip. So
Hmm.
there's so many things that we love to look at, and you walk for a reason. You don't just walk because you're nervous.
Hmm.
And there's the forward and back on the stage. So I did a lot of work on stagecraft and presence, and it just makes the audience feel a little bit more comfortable and can come on that journey with you. So it's quite empowering and quite exciting.
I love that. And that makes a lot of sense when it comes to the way that you're standing as well. I know that for me personally, I just like to move around, especially if my audience is wider in front of me, so that I am targeting specific groups as I'm kind of spanning over the conversation so that everyone sees that I'm looking at them as I'm going back and forth across the stage. That's my favorite thing to do. I also don't like standing still. So, and I do talk with my hands a
So
lot.
it's all
So,
about you. It's all about you, really, isn't it?
so I know that I have to be very aware of where my hands are placed and how I am using them for specific gestures, right? Like if you are numbering something, that makes sense to hold up, like, let's say 3 fingers, so that you're using kind of a visual so that people can see. And one of the things that I learned early on was being aware of that and where your hands are positioned, because I used to keep them very low. And then I started doing a lot of stuff on Zoom, which kind of brings your arms up a little bit, but it kind of stayed that way when I was doing in-person conversations as well, which from what I have heard from a lot of people, and love your opinion, that most people are kind of paying attention to the head to just below the chest anyway, right? Even if you're standing. So where your hands are at when you're on stage really matter as well, so that people are getting the message and you're not overusing them, that you're distracting with your hands, but it can be a way to bring a visual as well.
Yes, it's so, so important. See, where your eyes go, the audience goes. And so a lot of times we can take the audience to what we want to show them with our hands. So it's really important. Um, and I quite often say to people, just imagine you've got this soft ball in front of you and your hands are springing out from that ball. Because a lot of times I see women and they talk and they've got their hands around their breast space and their hands are bouncing off. I think I was like, is that what everyone to look? So you've got to be aware. Some people will bring them down to the fig pose in front of them and like, is that where you want to draw people's attention? And sometimes, especially when people are starting to talk at the very beginning, it's great to watch yourself. A lot of their hands are almost stuck by the side of their body. And as they get going a minute in, they start to move up, start to relax and become part of it. So it's great if you can understand that, so you can come on and use them in the right ways to empower the audience to come on that journey with you. Even the way that we put our hands are telling a story. If you spoke like that the whole time, it'd be too much. If you were speaking like this and this is what you need to do, it'd be too much. So understanding where to put them is hugely important. And of course, you might have 5 things you want the audience to take away, and I see this all the time. They go, the first thing is, and then they keep on going, and then it's like, and the fourth thing, and you're like, oh shit, what's second and third? I missed that. So if you're going to do it, you've got to make sure that you keep letting people know, come on this journey with you.
Mm.
Um, do say this is the first, do say this is the second, do say this is the third, and you use your fingers just to all of a sudden spring that you're at the end, and we missed what was the others. So you've got to be really clear, and you are the puppet master when you're on stage or when you're speaking. People don't go to listen to you and go, gee, I hope this person fails. They really want you to be good. They really want you to be entertaining, to be motivating, to be inspiring. And, inspiration is interesting because it's in spirit. When you connect, you feel great. But what I have learned is that inspiration doesn't always lead to action. People, for 2 reasons. One is through desperation and one is through inspiration. Desperation, unfortunately, leads to more action.
Okay, I get
But
that.
if we can be inspired and lead ourselves to action, disrupt ourselves because of that inspiration, it is much better choice than waiting for desperation.
I will agree with that 100%. And I think that's where it's really important for people to define the types of conversations that they're wanting to be a part of, especially in the speaking realm. Obviously, I personally feel that they should all have an inspiring piece to them, but for those really that are leading any type of conversation with, let's say, their story, like things that they've been through, what's kind of made the trajectory of where they're at today, so that they can then show people where they can go. It's very important to bring in that connection and that relationship building, which I feel like you can really do when you're speaking on stage. And I've seen it done in so many different areas of business and different topics, but I also feel like that's kind of what people are craving as well. So it's being very concise, I'd like to say, where you can high level explain and be able to bring to the audience the difference that can be made as well. What would you say is what you would consider a desperation? So the difference, if you were trying to talk with a speaker and help them understand how you can show your inspiration and inspire people to want to take that action versus, I almost feel like cold selling, that desperation of like, you need what I have. What would you say would be the difference when you're helping someone understand that?
Right. Well, this is a whole training day, don't you? So, uh, of course, in the old days, everything was like presentation, 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 close,
Yep.
close, 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 close. Whereas
Yep.
today, it really is about building that relationship. So, your story around what you do really matters. And I was just recently in Ireland working with some entrepreneurs on their messages. And, this lady had this great product. She talked about why she was doing it, sort of thing. And I said, but what made you start this business? Because honestly, the reason you started this business is what sells your business. You've We create a business to solve a problem, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
And it's different to like just buying a fish and chip shop to make money to support the family. But you may have bought that fish and chip shop because your favorite memories was being with your mum and dad as a child on the beach, sharing fish and chips. And that is more powerful than just having a fish and chip shop because you thought it could be a way you could earn some money, which we know it's hard work unless you love it or you love customers or you love the smell of fish or you love going fishing or whatever that reason is. You really need to start with, why are you doing this? And if you can really share that message, wow, you don't need to sell what you're doing. People want to come on that journey.
Mm-hmm.
I became a communication master because I feel the most important thing, I'd go to businesses, we were doing sales, service, all sorts of things, and I'd go into businesses, with this one thing that they really needed, and they'd be telling me, and then I start to listen, and I discovered, if you don't communicate well to yourself, to your customers, and to your teams, your business starts to fail. And because we think something doesn't mean that our team member knows what we think. If we
Mm,
think something, it doesn't mean that our customer is knowing what we're thinking if we're not communicating it well at the same time. And then these skills are so important to take home because a lot of families aren't communicating well. We're all thinking things, and I hate when you see, even growing up, I'd have best friends that would fall out. And it's like, well, what happened? And no one can really say, but it's little things that built up
yep.
that all of a sudden, blah. And it's because we've been making up stories for each other. Oh, she's acting like this because of this, instead of saying, is everything okay?
Yeah.
Or oh, that doesn't really sound like you, or I feel a little bit hurt right now. What's happening? People don't have those conversations. Instead, we make up a story in our head. Oh, they're trying to make me look bad, or blah blah blah, whatever it is we're doing. It's all about us. It's because of our ego. And once we can start to let that go, I think it makes a huge difference. But getting back to sales, sorry, and the question at hand, it really is about building relationships. It's about communicating well to yourself and to your customers, and don't leave out the most important thing. And so when I asked her this, she actually had tears because she said, as this photographer, she loves creating these memories. She was looking through her album and found out she wasn't in any of the photos. She felt like she was invisible, and she needed to
Mm,
start to put herself in photos. And she wanted to do this for other, in Ireland, they say mummies, which is so cute. For other mummies, she wanted them to be in those memories as well. And so that's how that's how her business came about, and it's booming. But when she told a story, she actually had tears because she hadn't really stopped to remind herself of why this was so important
I
and
love
why it's so
that.
important to others. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like you're right. There's a lot of us that have created some type of business or became some type of business owner because of the things that we were lacking. And we wanted to be the person to provide it for other people because we know what it feels like. And I do think that a lot of people are craving that deeper type of connection. And I do think that COVID kind of helped with that as well, because we did lose communication and the ability to be able to relate to other people except for online. So it's kind of, in my opinion, created this really unique space where like people are craving that and wanting to know more and wanting to understand. And that is the reason why they are listening to certain people or they are making certain purchases, is because of that factor right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Human beings are not meant to sit by themselves and just scroll. We really are about connection, and on this planet, if we worry always about ourselves, so I work a lot in mindset. And of course, one of the chapters is around mindset, and mindset for success is our podcast. So we just do series in that. So series 1 is out. And it's quite incredible. Like I was saying before, what we think isn't always right. And once we can start to let any negative thoughts go out, we create more space to
Mm,
allow those positive thoughts to come in. So yeah, since COVID, it's for some people it really felt like they were isolated, and
yep.
for others, all of a sudden they were at home with family and started to play games and started to reconnect again. So, but what we do know is this online and the internet's allowed us to connect around the world. I spoke to 40,000 HR consultants for one of our agencies in Australia that was booked me for a job, and they wanted to understand their first impressions because they weren't engaging people on the online, so I quite get people to give us a reaction, and you can use your breakout rooms quite well, so we're teaching them how to engage and um, not to stand up and only have your undies on and all those sorts of. You got that other half there, Kat.
I got shorts on today. I'm actually fully dressed. But yes, there are definitely times where the pajama bottoms were the what made it upstairs.
When you might have to jump up, right? Like a snake might come across my table. I'm going to go. Um, Kidding. That doesn't really happen. People have just been over in England and going, how can you live in that country full of snakes and spiders? I'm like, it's very scary.
So funny. But you're right though. I think that one, like Zoom and different platforms like that have made an amazing opportunity for so many people to be able to meet people around the world. I've had the opportunity to meet so many people in different countries, which has been so cool and so fascinating. And we do need to remember that even if you are doing things online, there's still a way to create that space and that connectiveness, and like you said, like keeping people involved, versus just it's a face on a camera and we just go through the whole thing and then kind of move on to the next one. So I love that you brought that up because I think that that's super important, even online, that there needs to be some type of connection and engagement when you're working with your staff, when you're working with your company, or if you're doing an online talk, whatever the case may be, so that you are continuing to keep that engagement, which happens virtually and in person, to be able to keep that engagement, right?
Yeah, correct. We get around 2 to 3 seconds online to make that first impression. We get 15 seconds on stage to create that likability. Face to face, we get around 7. So it's important.
That blows my mind. Like it just blows my mind how quick it takes for the brain to make a decision like that. Um, All right. So, Catherine, I can't thank you enough. I know that you have 2 books that you have, and I know we kind of really talked more around the Million Dollar Handshake. So, give me a quick overview of your other book as well, as we're kind of coming to a close, because I want people to know about both of them. And then I have a question for you.
Okay, so the second book, I'm looking around my office. They've just a batch has been delivered. And I'll just see what pants I've got on. Is The Conscious Leader. So oh my gosh, my husband said, I wish I knew all this. Why didn't we know this when I was running my business? Um, but I've worked with leaders all around the world. And so this book, because there was a leadership chapter in the Million Dollar Handshake, and they said, no, that's another book. I was like, but I've written for probably I'm in 10 books at least around the world. Sorry. This was our draft, and this is the real book that's going out in the world. So that's the conscious leader.
Nice.
It starts with self leadership and understanding who you are or your strengths, but it also goes through all the other leadership styles that you hear in the first chapter. So you can have a look about uh, what it means, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, so that you can start to add to your toolkit, because it's never the one style of leadership that you need in every situation. But
Yeah.
understanding that is so important. And then it moves into conscious, emotionally intelligent leaders, the new seals in the world, because they said by 2030, all our leaders will be emotionally intelligent. I'm like, why the hell are we waiting till 2030? And
Wow.
and right? And so it works through that. And it's like the Wi-Fi. If you've got one bar, it's not too bad. You might get out. If you've got two bars, it's quite strong. If you've got three bars, you're making a great connection. And
Mm-hmm.
so with conscious, emotionally intelligent leaders, uh, first is conscious of self. So we work through that, then conscious of others and conscious of context of what's happening in those conversations. We move into purposeful leadership. Great chapter, and each chapter has a story from one of the leaders we've worked with around the world. And then our fourth chapter is language for leadership, which of course is one of my favorite. It's the language that goes into here, that comes out of here, that comes through our body. And 93% of how we make people feel is through our body language, is through our tonality, our pace, our pitch. And then we go into lead with purpose, so leading teams. And last but not least, and one of my favorite chapters is our legacy, our conscious currency. What are you transferring
Mm.
every day? And how are you making micro and macro legacies for the future? So it's pretty cool. It leaves you with that. So there's activities in each of these chapters because they are 6 workshops. So we have these 6 workshops online as well. And the book, of course, which is available all over the world. So yeah, so exciting. So I love that. And people always go, "What's your next book?" It's like, oh, stop. But when I was working in one of the banks overseas, uh, you know, when a lot of women events, I speak on, unlock your worth. And
Mm-hmm.
so the book is 16 seconds, the ultimate guide to unlock your worth. So it works through all these things that we can do. So I love it. And it's going to be coming out in the next 12 months.
Yay! Oh, I'm super excited for that. We might have to have you back to have a conversation about that one then. So Catherine, then as we are coming to a close, I always ask this one question, and that is, do you happen to have a quote or a piece of advice that you would like to leave the audience with?
Okay, so the first thing that comes to mind is never let yesterday use up today.
Ooh.
And for me, it's been hugely important in business. Like I don't want to start today with all the things I was supposed to do yesterday. And so it's really cool. And I give my clients a thing I call digger, daily income generating activity. So just 3 things, because if you do a to-do list and you write 17 things on it, you'll do all the things that you want to do and that you would have done anyway. So it's
True.
always just 3 things that are going to make a difference for the business, and to write it the night before. So write it before you walk out of your office or desk, whatever. So the next day, it's the first thing that you see, so that you do that, so that then the day after you still don't have to get those jobs done because you've done them. So never let yesterday use up today.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love
I don't
that.
want yesterday to take away my today.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like we live in a world where a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I'm just so behind. I'm so behind. I'm so behind. So I think that's a really interesting twist to that. And I actually heard someone not too long ago that was talking about that. And they said, you're never behind. If you see yourself as behind, you'll always see yourself as behind. So, and I love that you simplify that down. Just start with 3 things that are income generating and then move from there. So Catherine, I can't thank you enough for the conversation and all the information and the wonderful tips on both speaking on stage and virtually. So thank you so much for that.
Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. It's been wonderful, and love anyone to say hi anytime. We're here in Oz, but we travel the world.
Yeah. And please do us all a favor. Tell us, how can everyone find you? How can they connect with you? How can they be in your world?
Oh, great. Fantastic. Actually, there's a couple of things. So there is a TED Talk, Think Before You Speak. So if you want to hear a true story that we all do, jump and listen to that. But a Wednesday every month, we're running Leading Ladies Lunches Global online. So it's a free webinar that you can jump in. It's live. It's happening. You can ask questions, but you don't have to be seen. So you can eat your lunch, go for a walk. If you're working in corporate, or if you're entrepreneur running your business, or a mum at home wanting to get back into the workforce, it's great. We have conversations every month in your country, in your time zone. So in America, we have one. You've got quite a few different time zones, so you just have to go to leadingladieslunches.com and you will see your time zone. Click on that and jump in live. We'd love to see you there. Think Before You Speak is our TED Talk, so feel free to have a watch of that and connect with me. All the links, Kat Scott, and we'll probably post up for you as well. So
Yeah, definitely. And we'll have all the information in the show notes, of course, Catherine, for all those things and for your book and for people to be able to just be in your space. I love the leading ladies. That's a really interesting. I might have to pop into that one as well. So yeah. So again, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. To everybody else that's out there, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you got some amazing tips from Catherine, and are thinking about checking out her book. She's got some really interesting information, and I think that she simplifies it down in a way that makes sense, and it makes it a little bit easier to implement the smaller things as you continue to build on that. So again, thank you, Catherine, so much for being a part of the podcast today. And to everybody else out there, please do me a favor and do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next time, have a fantastic day. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.